Right, hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on improving 5G roaming services with SEPP. We appreciate you joining us today from wherever you are in the world. So thank you for making the time. It's great to have you with us today. So we have well over 200 people registered for this event, which is fantastic in this busy season that we're in the roaming industry. So thank you very much for joining. And in return, over the next 45 minutes, we shall do our utmost from our end to share with you lots of, insights and thoughts to inform you all around that topic of 5G roaming and the role that SEPP, so Security Edge Protection Proxy, has within that to help you as operators as you work towards your 5G standalone launches. So let's move on to some introductions, and then we can go through the agenda for today's webinar. So myself, I'm John King, the Commercial Officer at Kaleido Intelligence, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. So I see many familiar faces are with us today, live with us, so it's great to have you with us again. And likewise, if you're with us for the first time, it's fantastic to have you as well. So, and obviously it's not just myself, but we have some real industry experts to share their views with us on today's panel as well. So it's great to have you with us. So we have Ilana Tidhar from TOMIA, we have Ruben Diaz from Vodafone, and Nitin Bass also from Kaleido. So it's fantastic to have all three of you with us today to share your thoughts. I think for the audience's sake, it'll be great if you could quickly unmute yourselves and give a quick introduction to your roles. Ilana, if we start with yourself and then to Ruben and finishing with Nitin.
Hello, thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Ilana Tidhar, and I'm leading the product and the R&D part of the network business unit. More than 20 years, I know it doesn't look like that, but it is in the telecom industry. That's it. Hope you will enjoy.
Thanks. Good afternoon, all of you. Right, my name is Ruben Diaz. I'm the Principal Technology Platform Manager in Vodafone, based in Luxembourg. And I was working in Vodafone for more than 13 years, and now I'm accountable and responsible for all the roaming platforms in Vodafone, and also representing my company in the 5G MMR in GSMA. Thanks for joining.
Hello everyone, I'm Nitin Bass, Chief Analyst here at Kaleido. I'm responsible for leading our roaming and wholesale research and data side of business. I'm also the author of the white paper, so very pleased to join TOMIA and Vodafone today for this exciting session on SEPP and 5G roaming. So yeah, thanks again.
Anna, Ruben, Nitin, thank you very much for that. I myself, I'm sure the audience as well, are really looking forward to what you have to share over the next 45 minutes or so. So on that note, that takes us nicely onto the agenda. So what exactly are we sharing with you today? So again, the purpose of today's webinar is really just to dig into this topic of not just 5G roaming, but the role of SEPP within that. Right? So as you can see, look at the agenda on your screen now. We're going to start by looking at the market overview and trends within 5G roaming. So that'll be led by Nitin at Kaleido. Obviously, Kaleido, as you know, is a research firm and we're dedicated to the roaming space. So whether it's market data or operator surveys or trend analysis, competitive intelligence, that's what we do all year round. And as you might imagine, 5G roaming is pretty high up on the list of requests we get to do research into. So Nitin will share some of our latest insights with you, and within that as well, some analysis we have on the operator community towards SEPP and its role in 5G roaming too. So we'll start with that. We'll then hand over to Ruben, and Ruben will lead us, again, looking at that role of SEPP within 5G roaming and given a vision of, when we're looking down the line, we're looking at actually how can we, optimize, the role of SEPP within 5G roaming. What does that look like? So I think that'll be fantastic for us to take hold of as a whole and feeds very nicely then into what Ilana will share with us when we look at actually what does that look like for when we look at improving 5G roaming services with SEPP. So obviously we know that SEPP will be mandatory, with 5G SA roaming. But the standard SEPP, there's an enhanced SEPP. What's the difference tangibly? What does that mean to you as an operator when we look at actually that enhanced version and what that can deliver? So that's what Ilana will then take us through as well. You can see on your screen, we have audience Q&A as well. Now, I imagine that many of you who are joining us today for a topic such as this, you've probably come already with lots of questions on this topic that you want to ask. And if so, that's fantastic. We want to hear them. I also imagine that as we present to you over the next 40 minutes, you will be triggered as well and have some other questions, in which case also fantastic. And we also want to hear those as well. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a chat feature in the bottom corner. That's where you submit all your comments and thoughts and questions to us. So just expand that. It should be set to all panelists. Do type your questions in. And we have that dedicated section at the end where we will strive to get through as many of those questions as we can. It's worth saying before we move on that when we do these webinars, they are usually aligned to the publication of a white paper. This is no exception. So there is a new white paper directly on this topic with a lot of additional analysis to what we're going to be talking through today that you will be available to receive from tomorrow. So you'll be emailed a link to download this tomorrow. And of course, the webinar recording that we're going through today will then be available to you in the coming days as well. So lots to discuss today, a lot that you can expect to receive following this, both tomorrow and then probably early next week as well. I think that takes care of the logistics for the session, so I think it's time to get into the content. So it's my pleasure now to hand over to Nitin, and Nitin, you can lead us away in talking through the latest trends shaping the 5G roaming market. Over to you.
Cool. Thanks again, John. What I'll try to do today is to set the stage, explain the 5G roaming market evolution, starting from the 5G market status, current market status, and towards, ending the presentation from my side with how operators view SEPP as an immediate requirement. So I think the best place to start is to kind of understand or paint a picture in terms of the growth that we see for 5G worldwide. So over the last few years, we've seen how domestic 5G network deployment have kind of gathered traction across most global markets. We've seen the surging demand for high-speed use cases, or high-speed broadband, low latency use cases, reliable connectivity in order to enable some advanced use cases, trialing new use cases. So all that we are focusing on, or the operators or worldwide that they're focusing on, is how to revolutionize, not just the consumer sector, but also a wide range of industries, verticals, and how to generate new revenue streams. So what we have seen so far is, 5G deployment primarily using the non-standalone architecture, but we are also slowly seeing the shift towards 5G standalone networks, and that's increasing, bringing new the 5G new radio and 5G core access. Now, but the important thing to note here is building 5G standalone networks involves, investments in infrastructure, in equipment. So there's that need to kind of evaluate the cost benefit analysis, also to look into the return on investment assessment. So what we're seeing is, we've been speaking to a wide range of operators around the world. So we're seeing that the priorities, their own priorities towards 5G kind of varies depending on the state of the local market, state from, the part of the world, which country they're from. And that takes into multiple factors, such as, the subscriber demand or the revenue potential, or indeed the competitive landscape of that specific local market. But having said that, we're predicting rapid growth for 5G. We all know that the most important thing is how 5G represents much faster growth than the early years of 4G adoption. I think it's like 2 year difference, 2 years in advance. So we see a surge in 5G adoption throughout the world, in 2023 and beyond. So which we're forecasting that this will ultimately drive the total number of 5G connection, both consumer and IoT connections, to well over 7.5 billion by 2028, and it's up from a figure of 500 million in 2021. Moving on to the next slide. So as I mentioned, there is that increasing shift towards 5G standalone networks. It's slowly happening. We see a lot of commercial services as well being launched. In case you have not seen our report, we've got a 5G standalone tracker report available on our website, which kind of tracks the global 5G core investments, 5G standalone network deployments, trials, commercial launches. We've also added on a focus on use cases that are being enabled across these markets. So I would like to take this opportunity to invite you to check out our 5G standalone tracker as well. But just, as you can see on your screen, based on our latest update that we published a few weeks ago, we are estimating more than 45 domestic 5G standalone commercial launches. I think there's 60 plus core network launches, and this is spread across 35 plus country markets. We are estimating another 20 expected over the next few months. So this is kind of presents a global overview of the 5G standalone market status from a domestic point of view. Now, if we quickly move to the next slide, also just to touch upon what it means for 5G roaming. We understand how the global deployment of 5G networks, be it on NSA or standalone, will revolutionize mobile roaming. We do believe that this will create new revenue prospects for stakeholders. It's beyond just faster broadband use cases, and for reasons that you probably understand, and that's being discussed widely. We have also mentioned this previously across our other webinars. Operators implementing 5G non-standalone roaming, the transition is relatively straightforward. But one of the key focus for operators is to ensure that they have the adequate interconnectivity bandwidth to accommodate any expected spikes in traffic or signaling traffic, not just from a consumer application perspective, but also from IoT applications. So what we're seeing now is operators investing in 5G standalone roaming trials, investigating those new 5G roaming use cases. So we do believe that the first set of 5G standalone roaming agreements is expected soon. We ran a 5G roaming survey at the start of this year. I think we surveyed well over 100 mobile operators in January 2023, and around 40 to 50% of the participating MNOs expected to launch 5G standalone roaming at some point by the end of 2024. It is a bit optimistic, especially considering that we're towards the end of the year and approaching the end of the year, and considering the current readiness and standardization and the slow migration. So it is a bit optimistic, but from a 5G non-standalone roaming perspective, there's a lot more activities happening. We from the survey, well over 70-80% of the operators, they are aiming to have some sort of 5G non-standalone roaming agreements in place by the end of 2024. Currently 5G roaming, as we estimate, is available in over 40 international markets, and that's being offered by 60 plus operators. So again, another 10 to 15 market launches expected over the next few months. So in summary, what we are expecting is, we caught up with some of the operators that took part in our survey earlier on, and expectations have moved on, but there are still some who are aiming to achieve this towards the end of this year. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So just wanted to quickly touch up on the key factors that we believe will drive this migration towards 5G standalone roaming. And what is clear now is how roaming revenues are seeing a significant boost, in a post-pandemic world. Obviously travel's recovering, the data traffic usage is pretty much 2 to 3 times what it was previously. This all contributes to the increase in traffic as well as revenues for mobile operators around the world. In our survey, we found out that 40% of the operators who took part view 5G standalone roaming as a key or critical roaming revenue driver over the next few years, especially related to delivering enhanced use cases and low latency services. Now, and as you can see from the chart, operators rank the enablement of new business use cases and network slicing as the #1 driver for 5G standalone roaming deployments going forward. So network slicing again is widely discussed, and in a roaming context, it's still early days. It requires several new capabilities, new network slicing standardization and business models. But a good percentage of operators who are investing in 5G standalone roaming are also involved in some sort of network slicing trials, according to our survey. So that's one fact that we wanted to highlight. Quickly moving on to the next slide. So moving to 5G standalone roaming or deploying 5G standalone roaming presents several advantages, potential advantages for mobile operators, but at the same time, it presents several challenges, which then means that there is a need to plan, there's a need to understand the demand and the technological requirements, which could potentially range from something like the analytics and fault management solutions to signaling, interconnectivity, security, clearing, etc. And so there are some requirements and hurdles that operators need to understand now and approach in their roadmap in order to deploy and scale 5G roaming services successfully. So one of the key topics of this webinar, signaling and SEPP. So a significant transition is underway, right? Towards the adoption of cloud-native HTTP2 signaling protocol, and as well as the introduction of this element, SEPP. Now we all understand SEPP is a mandatory functional component for 5G standalone roaming, and in our survey, it was pretty evident that mobile operators understand the significance of having the right SEPP strategy and SEPP itself. So 87, as you can see from the chart, 87% of the operators consider this as an immediate or more immediate priority. So we now have several type of players offering SEPP to operators, and so it is important to understand, SEPP deployment, the use cases that it could potentially further enable, which Ruben and Ilana will further outline and explain in the coming few minutes. So it's going to be an interesting 15-20 minutes from now on. So yeah, on that note, thank you, and back to you, John.
Thank you, Nitin. It was an interesting 10 minutes as well with what you were sharing as well. So we really appreciate that. And I think what we're looking at here, just as you said, 87%, considering this immediate or more immediate priority, sets the scene nicely, right, in terms of why it's so important to be looking into this topic. So thank you very much for that and for sharing that. A reminder, of course, to everyone who's with us, please do keep any questions coming in through the chat feature. If you have any questions around the data projections or the operator attitudes that we just went through. But right now, it's my pleasure to hand over to Ruben to share more on, again, that vision of what SEPP can then look like within 5G roaming. So Ruben, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks a lot, John. So what I'm going to present here is, as you mentioned, is a vision, right? It's how I see the future, how I see 5GSA, how 5GSA is becoming really, really important for all of us, for the industry, for the ecosystem, and what is going to bring to all of us in terms of experience, security, or value of the service. So what you can see in the screen is basically what I can define as a main pillar for 5GSA. What 5GSA means? For me, the first one, I don't have any doubt that we discussed before in the previous slide, right? Customer experience, how you are going to improve the experience of the customer, how we are going to provide new value-added services, like, for example, sizing, MEC. And this is one of the main focus, but as well, security. Why not, right? I think that there is a strong demand from the operator, from the industry, from the roaming intermediaries to secure this 5G SA war. And it's also a really high priority for all of us. I mean. And the last one, and I think the one that I'm going to focus during my slides, is the value-added service. If you think about the legacy world, 4G, 2G, 3G, right? We have some services and are really important. We are going to have, I'm really sure, new service in the future that maybe right now we don't understand, we don't know, because this is the really key point from 5G SA, how you can define new service on top, how you can put new ideas in the pipeline, how you can share ideas with other customer, with other entities, and you can bring new value, business value to all of us, okay? So as I mentioned before, value-added service, why this is important? Because I think that we learned during the last 10 years that there are different demands, different options, different ways to do it, right? So we need to be really dynamic here. We need to understand that 5G SA, there is something that we are defining as a standard, but there are some use cases in which you need to think something else, right? We need to move forward, okay? So if we go to the next slide, please. I was thinking, when I was thinking about the presentation, about the challenge, right? When you deploy, for example, a service, a value of the services, what you are looking for, what you need to think about it, okay? First one, I don't have any doubt, cost, right? We want to be successful with this 5G SA deployment in all the operators in the whole world. We need to have a cost scalability. It's really, really important. We need to optimize the platform. We need to optimize how we are going to deploy. And this is for us important, but for all the operators as well, right? You need to think that there are small operators that they will have some challenge to move to 5G SA if this is a high cost, if there is really, really complex. Scalability, I mentioned as well, right, before. It's really important that 5G SA will bring us this way of doing. We can modify, we can scale the service, we can define in different ways. We need to play with that, okay? But it's really important that we can optimize the cost, maybe using scalability. This is, for me, an important way of doing, right? Flexibility, I mentioned before. You will have operators that they will have a central solution. Other operator will have a local service. Other will need third parties to provide the service because they cannot do it on their behalf. And this is why I strongly believe that the SEPP is going to be really important for us. Because in my view, I think that this is the reason of this presentation. The SEPP is the core of the roaming, right? Without SEPP, there is no roaming. And this is really, really important, okay? Next one, simplicity, for sure, right? 5G itself is not simple. It's a new protocol, you add security, everything is going to be much difficult, but we need to think how we can simplify the deployment. This is, for me, really, really critical. It's not just to say, I'm going to put a lot of new platform, a lot of new nodes, I'm going to scale it. If you cannot simplify, it will be really difficult to deploy. And if we want all of us to have all of these amazing service, security, etc., we need to be sure that all the industry deploy 5G SA. This should be our challenge. This should be our target as an industry. Move forward, move really faster to 5G SA, and use these new capabilities, right? New feature, new capabilities, new service. I mentioned before, you have the legacy service. You have, for example, Destino roaming, welcome SMS. This is for sure there, right? We need to looking for a way of doing, but in 5G SA, right? 5G SA is quite different, has a different concept of how you apply the service, but these services are really important. But what else, right? I mentioned before, the application function. 5G SA is focused on the application, focus on what you can provide extra. And I'm really sure that in 1, 2, 3 years, when all of us, all the industry will start to play with 5G SA, we're looking for new ways of doing new business, new service that we can provide to the end customer, but also to customer to internal operators to roaming intermediaries. This is really, really, really critical. So in the next slide, this is the last one from my side, right? I try to share some of the use cases that I see that are really important in an agnostic way. For sure, I'm not going to talk about hosted SEPP or not. This is a different debate, right, in the GSMA. But let's start by the first one, and you will understand why I think that the SEPP is really important. The first use case is simple. You are an operator. You are going to manage your local deployment. Anything else, everything is internal. You don't need the SEPP, right? The SEPP is for roaming, but not for that value-added service. There is any doubt, okay? This is the case for some of the operators, but we need to understand that in the industry and also in the world, there are operators that they have maybe challenge with budget, challenge with the complexity, and they cannot go in that direction. They will need someone to provide the service. This is when we move to the second case, right, that you have in the right side, is one of the hybrid one, if I can say. You are an operator, you have your own SEPP. However, you are going to have a third-party entity providing you a service. In that case, I imagine that you already know the NEF, the network exclusion function, in which it's really useful. It's something new. It's something that is going to change the world of all of us, of roaming, right? Because you have APIs and you can also provide value-added service from a third-party point of view. But it's not just this case. And this is why we move to the next case, that is the third one, in which you are the operator A, you don't have a budget, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have time, you don't know how to do it. And then you need someone to provide you the service that are really, really important, okay? In that case, imagine that you are the operator. This operator is in the pipeline of the roaming. So it's providing you a SEPP services, could be as an intermediary hosted or whatever. At the end, is an intermediary in the middle who needs to provide the service. And as I said before, the SEPP is always there, right? It's there, and we can use it for services. We can put some service on top of the SEPP. The SEPP can be the feed, can take a role, an important role in the value of the services, and then this provider can provide the SEPP, the service, ARBA services, whatever is there, right? Using this SEPP, okay? We need to think about it. It's really, really important. That Ilana is going to bring some points about it, okay? And the last case, that could be also potential use case for some of the tier one operator, right, that we have in the ecosystem, is when you have a central solution. Central solution, it's really important. Scalability, cost reduction. You also simplify everything. And when you have this case that is defined in GSMA as an operator group, right? You have a central solution and you can provide services. You can provide services to the whole group, for example, and in that case, the SEPP is the entity who is there, right? It's the one who is providing the service, not just roaming. Also, we can provide SEPP, value-added services, okay? And this is why the SEPP, in my view, for sure, right, is going to be really important, and we need to think about how we can provide value-added services, okay? So I just finished. John, back to you.
Ruben, yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I think that's really helpful, and especially the slide we're looking at now, right? Because you put the nail on the head. I mean, we think through an M&O lens, everyone's at different journeys here, right? In terms of, are they pioneering those first, agreements and deployments? Is it in the plan for, as Nitin said, then maybe late into 2024? Is it further back after that? Budget levels, all these elements. So I think having these, 4 different use cases, I mean, it's really helps, I'm sure, for the audience to be able to see that. And as you said, it aligns very nicely then into what Ilana's going to be sharing as well. So so thank you very much, Ruben. Again, we've got some questions coming in, which is fantastic. So please do keep them coming in if you've been triggered by anything that Ruben has just shared, or indeed, if you find yourself triggered over the next 15 minutes or so, as Ilana shares with us, really now looking at talking through, how can operators, enhance that role of SEPP, and what can that look like? So, Ilana, I'm excited now to hand the floor over to you.
Me too. So, hi everyone again. And in this webinar, we would like, actually from my side, to share our view about the SEPP, TOMIA's view, and of course, this view is based on our deep knowledge in roaming. Yeah, that's why this is how we see SEPP. We see how it can help to value-added services. Next, please. So again, as my colleagues already mentioned, SEPP, it's kind of a entity, a core network entity, which is sitting in front of each network. But the uniqueness of this, it's used only for roaming. I think it's, I think it's in the only case that a 5G core network defines, especially for roaming. So if two networks want to talk one to each other, it always will be a SEPP. And first, and the main, let's say, purpose of this entity is to ensure the security, the very high level of security and connectivity between each two networks by using the special protocols. Next, please. So what are kind of challenges that signaling in 5G roaming exist? Some of them, they're actually pretty known in the industry, and some of them may be new because of the design or because of the protocol that was chosen to be used in the 5G standalone. So let's see the first one, the treatment prevention. It's another layer of security, but logical one. Usually in SS7 and LTE world, we used to have a separate component called firewall, which prevent us from those kind of treatments. And the second one, I think it was touched by Ruben as well, is a really flexible routing capabilities, because we need, again, it's a gateway. The SEPP is the gateway that all the traffic is coming in and out from your network. And if you want to do a various of integration with different network function with different fast services, you need to have as flexible as you can capabilities, something similar to what we used to have in the SS7 LTE, let's say in the DRA for LTE or STPs. The last one is the ability actually to create a registration transaction or to close any transaction. And I think this one is kind of new in the industry. It's because of the protocol. The HTTP is, you cannot simply listen outside and correlate between the request and response, because it's actually one transaction. It's HTTP transaction too. So these challenges also exist and could be addressed by SEPP. Next, please. So what are, in our vision, an enhancement that could be and should be, and we design it in this way, to provide it on top of the basic standard SEPP requirement. So of course, enhancement and smooth integration with value-added services. The probe that I've just mentioned, the challenge to close the transaction because of the protocol. A smart analytic that can bring additional feeds to the value-added services and create a new business, actually. And the firewall that just I mentioned before, the natural place for him, as we think, should be in SEPP embedded. Next, please. So saying that, actually, this is the structure, how we was thinking the SEPP design should be. It's a layer-way structure. The gray part is, of course, important, the core definition of the SEPP, which is mainly focusing about the secure connectivity, the certificate management, of course, as Ruben say, the full scalability, redundancy, and stability, because it's a gateway for all your roaming. But on top of that is coming another layer, which is the firewall. Can we go to the next one? You may ask yourself, why I need another firewall? I have already SEPP. It's all about security. It's written in the name of SEPP. It's supposed to be a security agent. And the answer is pretty clear. The answer is because it's a different level of security. If we are talking about encryption and decryption in SEPP for incoming connectivity. The SEPP is not aware, the standard one is not aware to the content of the data he is receiving and sending back and forward. The firewall rules defined actually a logical decision split into different categories. I will give you an example from one of the categories and then it will be crystal clear. For example, if for the roaming, only certain percentage or some specific messages should be sent between the operators in the roaming, then all the others should be blocked. They are not related. It's a fraud. Or if the connection is perfectly established and validated by SEPP, however, the firewall should recognize if some addresses inside the messages are not coming from the right network. So those kind of examples of the firewall rules, and that's why we think the natural place of the firewall is actually embedded into the SEPP. Because imagine you want to block this message. You do not want to forward it to the next network function because of those rules. Next, please. An additional layer that coming on top of that, it's a layer of analytic. Analytics actually a layer, it's more than one component inside. So the probe is one of the examples that we mentioned, it's part of such a layer. A smart analytics is part of such a layer. And in the next slide, we can see actually how we split it, thank you, into the main two enablers that actually could feed the next layer. And these two enablers is one of them is a probe, which will have an ability to close all those transactions, to enrich the subscriber profile, whatever information is needed, and of course to output this information to whoever is want to consume this info. And another one, we call it a data lake, which is actually doing an analytic and splitting the information into the relevant subject and relevant topics, we call it. And consumers can register to this topic. For example, I'm interested to see the split of different slices on network quality, for example, or IoT devices. So I will register to topic X or Y or whatever and consume it online. Next, please. So all those enablers on the analytics layer actually provide food enrichment for the integration and enrichment of the value-added services like steering on roaming, like welcome SMS, and many others. And now, on the next slide, what we will see, it's real example, really use case, how these analytic layers that based on TOMIA SEPP architecture can enrich the already existing VAS services like steering of roaming. Just a few examples. For example, if by consuming the relevant data lake, you will have an information about a network quality of service based on different KPIs, you can treat your steering decisions in a different way. Or if you're going from the network level to the subscriber level, to the profile level, and have some information about the bandwidth, APNs, and so on, again, you can take the relevant steering decisions. IoT. We already talking about few years in the industry about IoT. We understand that IoT probably need to be treated differently in the steering than the regular one. And the slices, we all looking forward what they will bring with us. But already we can say that the analytic can provide this information as part of all the process, all the messages that come in, and then again, smart decision could be taken based on this information as well. And next, please. I've mentioned a little bit about the quality of service in the network. So again, we can know about on those smart analytics an example of a network outage. Create a smart scoring based a separate scoring per services like data, voice, and SMS. It's discussed already for a while in the industry, the potential of this information and how it can affect the business. I think we're just at the beginning of the journey. I think the 5G standalone, it will be more and more important. And this information can create really value added decisions that could be added for the different value added services. Next. Now, a bit different topic, but again, a use case of reusing the same data lake based on analytics. It's mobility events. So it's a logical event. It's not just you get the message and then take your decision. No, we already creating for you the meaningful events, like someone start his visit, someone change the country, someone go back at home, and then of course, an obvious consumer of such a case could be a welcome SMS, but not only that, much more. Enterprises like insurance companies, or travel agency, and financial anti-fraud. For example, I can correlate actually some financial transaction with the real events and see if it makes sense for me or it could be a fraud. Next, please. And another, I think the last use case example is an example of seeing both ways. I can see inbound traffic coming, my visitors coming to my network, and outbound traffic. And I can see as my visitors coming by, again, smart KPIs done by analytics, that one of my partners have pretty heavy steering applied on my network. Take it into consideration as business decisions. Next. So, what are the main key takeaways that are really, at the end, I'm asking your question. No, I'm just kidding. What do you need to remember from this session? SEPP is important. It's actually crucial. I should not convince anyone that you need SEPP for roaming. Okay, it's crystal clear. But you can have much more than that. Of course, a firewall, which we used to have as a separate model, it could be embedded inside the SEPP. A probe, which also was used to be a separate model. Here, actually, it's even a challenge to create it as a separate model. It's really problematic one. And next layer, of course, analytics that can be beneficial for you, and an integration and enrichment for the vast services as a result of those analytics. So actually, it's a flow that's coming from the up down, that each layer actually enhanced the layer above. And the last, we will be happy to meet you at the WAS that coming very soon. And also you're welcome to contact us for any trials or POC for we successfully done with the 2 European operators already. So you're welcome to contact us for the trials as well. And that's it.
Ilana, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I mean, my initial take is just wow, you know, because there's a lot to take in what you just shared. But I think it's extremely relevant and important for the industry to consider on this topic. And of course, for all of you who are listening into this and digesting, I think it's a timely point to remind you that you know, the presentations that we're showing here and the recording of the webinar that will be coming your way in the coming days. So you can expect the white paper related to this webinar. You will receive an email tomorrow where you will have a link where you can download that white paper from, part 1. And then in the coming days, probably early next week, you will be able to access this recording. And then you can play back Ilana and Ruben and Nitin's presentations to your heart's content. You know, but there is, I mean, in all honesty, there's a lot of really good information there, I think, to help us overall as an industry moving forward. So thank you guys so much for those presentations. We have a bit of time left, so I think let's kick into some of the questions as well that we've had. So we've had quite a few come through, which is great. So so give me a sec. And Ilana, if you stay with us, I mean, we have a question here It's an interesting one. Okay, what would be your recommendations for choosing a SEPP provider and a value-added services provider?
Okay, maybe it's not neutral answer, right? So, but our kind of vision is specifically for the, I know it's not used to have a core networks element from the VAS providers. However, this core network element is for roaming only. So kind of a vision of roaming in a box, which is providing all the layers that I just displayed. I think it's beneficial because all this integration between the different VAS services actually could be saved. And they already integrated and enhanced in this kind of deliveries.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you for that. I have another question here. Ruben, I'm going to put this one to you, if that's okay. So, and I guess this is more saying about the operator preference. So it's saying, what is the operator preference for own SEP versus hosted SEP versus third-party SEP and different models? So are you able to, I guess, share your thoughts on that that question?
Yes, really difficult one, I can say, right? Because I can say that what is clear from the industry point of view is that each operator have different view, right? A different view, different way of thinking. I can say that there are a lot of operators that they are looking for their own solution, right? They will deploy their own solution, they will manage. But I can say that there are also a lot of operators in the world that they are looking for roaming intermediaries. Could be IPX, could be roaming caps, could be this type of supplier that can provide some services on top, right? We can't forget that in terms of scalability, cost optimization, this is always a good idea, right? If you ask me about numbers, percentage, I don't know for sure. I think that is quite open. And I think that when the industry will understand the benefit to have this different solution, hosted SEP, roaming hub, service hub, etc., will be more operators to join these ideas and join this adventure.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, I think you're right there. It's very much an ongoing discussion as well. So no, thank you for that. Ooh, so many questions. Who to go to next? Ilana, I'm going to bring this one back to you, okay? And so this question we had is PRINS supported, and which is better in terms of performance, TLS or PRINS? So,
yeah, a SEP standard talking about two kind of security, the TLS and PRINS. Of course, the PRINS one is the more advanced one, more complicated also, and it is supported. It's must be supported, of course, and the integration and the key thing here is when two networks talking to each other, they are actually talking with two SEPs that could come from different vendors. Both of them need to support same level of security. And for the answer, which one is better? PRINS is more secure.
I like that. This is direct, which is good.
So I'm from R&D, so.
Yeah, precisely. Okay, so hey, and you've given me a segue because you've mentioned research, and that must bring in Nitin, of course. So Nitin, we have one for yourself. This is an interesting one for you to field. When do operators need to be SEP ready?
I think I think we've discussed this. It's an important priority for mobile operators. What was the number? 83% plus 7%. Yeah, 83%. So they need to pretty much plan how they approach this now. There's a lot of work being done, as Ruben explained, and a lot of tier one and bigger mobile operator groups that we're talking to who've completed some trials or in the process of conducting some trials. And then you have the smaller regional operators still figuring out their roadmap. So for them, the priority is more sort of addressing, the evolving sunset plans, how to expand their current roaming footprint. So this is more restricted or more more widely discussed or approached amongst the bigger operator group. So I think it should be in everyone's roadmap. So yeah.
All right, man. Thank you very much for that. And I think we've still got time for there's one more question here. This is I like this question that came through. So and I think Ruben, I'll bring it to you first if that's okay, and then Ilana, maybe you come in afterwards as well. So the question is, can you expand on the complexity or unique challenges specifically for me as a smaller operator? I mean, it doesn't say the company name, but I guess for smaller operators in general, can you expand on, I guess, again, that complexity, unique challenges, maybe even some suggestions for what they should be doing?
Yes, of course, I can give you my view, right? So I think that I mentioned during my presentation, 5ESA is not simple. It's not simple. It's really nice, will bring us a lot of benefits for all of us, but the configuration, I think that someone also mentioned in the question, right? You are going to aggregate security, you are going to aggregate roaming, you are going to aggregate maybe part of the services, you are going to put new services. The key point for me, and I think that is really important for small operators, is to try to scale the deployment, try to optimize the cost, try to looking for alternatives, looking for the minimum that you need to have to enable 5GSA roaming. Because when you enable 5GSA roaming, you will be in this new world and you will have all the benefits. But of course, you need to looking for the balance between cost, time, effort, if you have teams that they can manage the complexity. If not, you have always this option that you have hosted supplier, you have roaming hubs, you have service hub, you have intermediaries that can provide to you and give you this service on your behalf, right? That can simplify your life and can give you this scalability, this cost assessment, and also bring new value, I can say.
Yeah, I did. I thought it was an apt question. It actually came in whilst you were doing your presentation, so I thought it would be good to take it to you for that. Ilana, I guess just from your perspective, I don't know if there's anything that you would add to that, or if Ruben's captioned everything quite well there.
I think we're good.
Yeah. Lovely.
No.
Okay. Well, on that note, I know we've run a little bit over, but thank you for staying with us on that. I think it's really good to answer some of these questions. I know we've not had time to do all of them, so I can see some questions from Nitin, not our Nitin speaking, another Nitin, Daniel, and Anthony as well. So sorry if not been able to get to those today, but we will get back to you post-event and all the questions and any others that have been submitted that I've missed. I think with all these topics, you know, this is new. This is a new area that we're going into. But again, collaboration, open discussions, asking these questions and working them out together is the way we're going to get there as an industry. So thank you very much for joining us today. We'll bring it to a close now. I think Ruben, Ilana, and Nitin, just to say thank you again so much for everything that you shared. My end, I'm sure the audience as well. I think it was really fantastic. So thank you guys so much. Firstly,
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, and to everyone else, thank you for joining us. Do stay tuned for those emails coming into your inbox tomorrow and then early next week. If you'll be at WAS, we look forward to seeing you there, and if not, we look forward to seeing you on another webinar soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.